Welcome back to Backroomconvos. I'm your host, Lesego M, aka Shoot Your Shot, and maybe you might get a chance to call me Daddy like Cairo. Listen, if you're a fan of pot, stay tuned because you might like what we're cooking. On this week's episode, we are talking everything Migos. We're talking about Skomota. We're going to touch on Shabby Shade. We are going to touch on Mr. Beast. We are going to touch on William Ruto, Katlego, Mphela, just to mention a few in this week's episode. How are you feeling, by the way? Are you good? Is everything fine? How was it? How was the morning even? Because I understand this episode will come later on in the day. So yeah, my morning was a bit hectic, and yeah, so there's a lot to touch upon to this day, and I do apologize to the people, to the people who were expecting an episode yesterday, but we didn't drop none. I was in a good space, with a friend of mine, and there's just a lot of excuses as to why I didn't make that, but I'll try my best to at least release 4 episodes. That was one of the days that I wasn't able to release an episode. Please do forgive me. So I'll start by saying this though. The song of the day is by J. Cole. The title of the song is Apparently. It was released on 2014 as the lead single for the Forest Hill Drive. I think it was an amazing album of that year. I think at the time I was still doing something like grade 10, 11, and I really loved Apparently. I am a true J. Cole fan, and I'm sure you've heard a lot of the songs that we mentioned as we said as song of the day. Most of them are like J. Cole, songs like First Person Shooters, Secret Recipe. Apparently now you could really tell I'm a really, really big fan of J. Cole, and I'm not shy about that. Bro really makes good music, and I genuinely like him for the person that he is outside the studio, outside the music. He sounds like a very genuine dude, and what I like about him as well is that what he says in the song and what you see in real life, it kind of does resonate. You're like, this person, he is who he thinks he is, or the person that he's preaching in the music. You can you're trying to see it, you're not trying to see it, what's the word, you kind of see it. Yeah, kind of is the word. Yeah, so you kind of see it in the music, and it's a reflection. You can see the reflection in the interviews of the music that he does, and the genuinity behind the brand J. Cole. And I love the fact that he never got changed by fame, and his music has always been real, authentic. And some might say earlier on he might have lost touch, or got taken by the industry, because I think when you're new to something you are trying to explore, to find yourself in that space. And I think the most beautiful thing about J. Cole is that when he was still finding it himself, he gave us the music of that phase, that I'm going through this, and can you feel it? And a lot of people could resonate that. A lot of people who were getting women because they had their first jobs, he was getting women because he's now J. Cole, who released Forest Hill Drive, and Black Friday night was Black Friday nights was popping, and he was getting fame, and a lot of people who were going through a lot of things could kind of resonate with a lot of J. Cole music in that sense. And I'm one of the people who truly am a fan, because not only because I think when it came to lyricism, I only paid attention on the later stage. I wasn't too big on the musicality, on the lyricism side of things. I was more of a musicality. Sonically, I really liked the way the sound was going. I was like, oh, this feels right. I don't know why, but it really felt nice to me to listen to a J. Cole music. And at that time, you kind of listen, and you grasp the lyrics. You become great at it. You kind of have fans. At some point, I had fans. Shout out to SMP. He's still a rapper, by the way, from Mphela South. And we kind of like, when I was in matric, we were sharing like some of the J. Cole stuff, and not even J. Cole, we were sharing like music from Kendrick, and like that's how my circle was with like the people, and how I was consuming music as far as like international hip hop or local hip hop, because then I was big into that, because like I've been like, for people who don't know that, at some point I still wanna like, I still am. I feel good. I still am like in my mind a rapper, because I still write music, and I still like do a lot of the creative stuff that I did back then. I still do now, but then I think the only difference now is that I do have structure behind the things that I tend to do now. And I'm like, how I set myself as far as like the podcast, as far as like the music, and I think there's a process and like the structure as to how you achieve certain things. And like, to me at that point, I never knew it, but now I do have structures to how I want this narrative or the story about my life, I want it to unfold. I think it makes sense for me in that sense to say, I think I've said a lot for the past 6 minutes. I've been talking about J. Cole and my love for music, and I can still go on and on about J. Cole. I've listened and I've watched a few documentaries by him, of course, and it's like, like I truly like him for who he is, man. The music, I appreciate it, and for that reason, apparently has to be the song of the day. I have a story, not really have a story, but I have memories where I like remember myself in my aunt's place, because I used to stay with my aunt, and I was like listening to J. Cole music specifically. Apparently when it came out, it was playing on the dish, and it was like changing from school, and I was singing along to that, and my friends, like, it's a big thing. Even I went through that phase, and if I could put a song, or if I could put a song to a phase in my life, apparently it would be one of those songs where it would be one of those songs I'm like, oh, this song made a lot for me in that phase. I don't know if that makes any sense to anyone, but yeah, how are you feeling again? Do let me know how you feel on the comment section, and if you want to share a beautiful story, do let us know, and we'll have you as a guest on our podcast, and for sure ask you a lot of questions. A lot of people want to know. Share your story. Maybe someone might be going through the same thing that you're going through, and it's still sad, man. The Cape Peninsula University of Technology, the student who got stabbed, man, that's very sad. The GBV consistently keeps on going on, man. I think we as a nation need to stand together. We need to pray. There's a lot that has to be done, but slowly but surely, I think we'll get to where we want to get as a nation, because I think with conversations that we are having, and we see and we acknowledge the wrongs that we, be the females, be the males, that we like, oh, this is like toxic side of me, he is toxic, I am toxic, and we start to have those conversations. I guess it gives us a bit more of an understanding of the people that we are working with, and how we make sure the next decade individuals or men, that the men of this society don't go through, or like we have less chances or less chances rather of having that high level of GBV in our country. It saddens me each and every day to find out that there's a man who stabbed their girlfriend, and a girlfriend stabbed their boyfriend, or vice versa. It's very sad, man. Yeah, but we are 9 minutes into the show. The song of the day, by the way, it's apparently by J. Cole. Is it apparently? It's up to you, man. By J. Cole. It was released as a lead single for J. Cole's album Forest Hill Drive, which was released on 2014. The song currently sits at 295 million in Spotify alone. I think it's a beautiful song. It deserves to be on there. I don't know if those are bots or like monthly listeners, but I think the song is very dope, man. Yeah, let's talk about it. A couple of days, a tweet came out. Katlego Mphela is working in Midrand VW. So for those of you who don't know who Katlego Mphela is, Kila Mphela used to play for Sundowns. he was the dude. He was like the lush back in my day, because when I was coming up, Mphela was like one of the people that, you know, as an upcoming soccer player, you look up to. Yes, I did play soccer back then, but you know, that's not about me. Katlego Mphela used to be that lush of the day. He used to be that guy, you know. Bafana, he did wonderful. You know, I don't really have the numbers. I don't know if you guys are interested in the numbers, but I just want to cover the story that, you know, might have been going on a few days back in the internet, and I didn't want to jump on the hype as well, because everybody was just all over the story and was talking about it, and I was like, oh, I'll just give my perspective later on in the podcast when we guys are to meet, you know. And I think today it made sense to me to talk about him. He is a sales rep in Midrand, in VW Midrand. You know, they had a profile up. He also had his profile up. I mean, you know, he was making bank, you know, like any other successful soccer player. I think they were making bands. At some point he was at Bafana, at some point Sundowns. You know, he was really doing good for himself, and like, life happens, I understand, man. And for him to have stood up and say, okay, like, maybe I didn't make the right investments in life, or the salary was not that great, or was not financially. And again, I don't blame anyone. Like, none of us are born with like financially literate, you know, or we are not all raised into money, so you don't like automatically know how to use money. You know, some of these skills you need to go out there, get those skills, learn how to use money, respect money, let it work for you, and you know, like a whole of that. It's a skill on its own, you know. And I think maybe Mphela might have been in this situation where he didn't really have the financial literacy, and he didn't know how to invest his cash. It might be vice versa, that he liked cars, like people say, and he was like, oh, this really makes sense. You remember even the Beast, he was like, whenever I retire here, I'm going to work at Fidelity. And it's like, okay, he's making bank and he's going to work Fidelity. Now it's just feeding into something that he always wanted to do. It's not necessarily the issue about money. It's just the love of something. I always wanted to do this. I'm like set for life, and I just want to do that for the fun of it. I've always wanted to do it. It always was like something I always wanted to do. And if Katlego Mphela is in that case and he's like got his finances straight, and I think it's wonderful because he's doing that. He's always following his passion or whatever that feeds him, or the burning desire. You know, I think it makes sense for me. I think I really appreciate and love the people who are courageous enough to follow their dreams. You know, if it's financial literacy, man, I think it takes true character for someone to stand up and say, you know, I fucked up with a lot of, like, sorry, excuse the language, I am sorry for the language. It was messed up that I used the money that I used, like how I used the money, but you know, it's life. We continue, we wake up, we strive to be better people. And I think for him to be like, okay, I made those mistakes, and I don't care what the media says, but I'll just lift myself up and like take it a day at a time, you know, take it a day at a time. I did what I did, and I've learned from it, and I intend to grow and build something out of every day that I'm being given in this earth. And I really admire him for that, and I appreciate him too, you know, for doing that. Not a lot of people have the guts, you know. I think about when I got to listen to Katlego Mphela's story, it was like, oh, like, you know how many people are killing themselves because of what they are going through, the suicide rates and everything that's going on, you know what I mean? And I'm like, well, it just takes a lot for people to be like, oh, I'm not gonna kill myself. Like, it's just a phase of my life that I'm going through. I'll be fine. We'll be fine. We'll make bank. And like, it takes a lot for people to be in that place or platform to be like, okay, now I got it in me, and I'm capable of being this person that I think I am in my mind. You know, despite the challenges, it takes a lot. So shout out to him that he didn't, you know, go into like suicide mode and he's like, I'm killing myself because of that. You know, it takes true character for him to like stand up and man up and be like, I'm gonna make something out of this, to make lemon out of lemonade, to make lemon out of lemonade, to make lemonades out of a lemon. You know, I think that's how it goes. But yeah, that was interesting to see, you know. And to anyone who's going through a lot, man, may God be with you, man. I know like life can be tough, can be harsh, can be so many days that can be wrong, but never give up, man. Keep on praying, talk to the Lord, and one day those doors will open. And I hope that you also pour the same love, the same compassion that the Lord has poured into your life. I'm not in the greatest space in my life at the moment. I don't have it all figured out. I don't have a lot of the things that my friends do, but I appreciate the little that I have, and I'm willing to give the little that I have to the people that have less than what I have. I think if we can show the love that we want to get, to reciprocate that, and like someone was saying before the interview, he was saying the kindness that you put out in the world has its own way of coming back to you, or a funny way of coming back to you. The kindness that you put out in the world has a funny way of coming back to you. Karma. He was saying that. I was like, oh, that's so profound, and I believe in that, and I want to. It's not easy, but I want to live my life in that direction, fighting always, man. Hold on in our logo. I think that's what I'm fighting for each and every day of my waking hours, and I'm appreciative. I might be going through some things, but I'm really appreciative of every moment that the Lord has given me in this earth, and I want to have impact. I want to bring impact. I want to bring value to the people that are listeners to the podcast, man. And I hope that you really see what we're trying to do with this thing, and I hope that the Lord does more for you in this moment of darkness. Pray, my brother, pray, my sister. It'll all be okay. For those of you who just joined us, I'm your host, Lesego M, aka Shoot Your Shot. Maybe you might get a chance to call me Daddy like Cairo. Listen, we are headed to an ad break. When we come back, we'll touch on what Mr. Beast was doing in the world. Let's meet after the break. Cheers. Welcome back to Backroomconvos. I'm your host, Lesego M, Daddy what he called, aka Shoot Your Shot, and maybe you might get a chance to call me Daddy like Cameroon. Listen, if you're a fan of porn, stay tuned because you might like what we're cooking. On today's episode, we touched on a lot of things, including Katlego, Mphela, Saga. We are going to touch on Skomota, Shabby Shit, Mini Dlamini, currently trending. We'll touch on that, even the Migos, and also remember that we also need to touch on the 100 walls that Mr. Beast built in Africa, in about how many countries? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 countries that he built those walls, and 52 of those were in Kenya, and he also did some improvements in some of the schools. But before we get into that, the song of the day is apparently by J. Cole, which was released on 2014 as a lead single for the album Forest Hill Drive, and it currently sits at 295 million on Spotify. Do let us know what you think of that song on the comment section, and please do not forget to follow, rate, and tell us what you think of the episode, and to get a notification for each and every time we drop a new episode. Let's get into it then. So for people who don't know, we did actually touch on the Katlego Mphela thing earlier on in the episode. So now I want us to talk about the 100 walls that Mr. Beast built in Africa. I heard Mickey was talking about it as well. I think what Mr. Beast is doing is phenomenal, and as I saw after the upload of that video, I think Mr. Beast has been doing a lot of great things, man, and I think you can kind of like see how karma works in his world, and you like see like the work or the love that he puts to people who have less, and how then he gets that back. You can kind of see in his life he's always getting more. He's and I love the fact that he's always pouring to other people and bringing value to people's life, And Kenya is one of the places that he built the 52 of the 100 wars, and some of the countries include Cameroon, Somalia, Uganda, and Zimbabwe. So yeah, I think what he was doing is very great. Apologies for the burp. So upon releasing that video, a clip came out on social media saying that Yahoo is canceling Mr. Beast. And I was like, why though? They were like, yeah, and I realized that it was fake news. No such thing is happening, because I went there and they're like, nah, there were still stories about Mr. Beast and Yahoo. So if the cancellation is happening, to let us know how that works, because I don't really know how it works. Make it make sense to me, because I went to Yahoo, searched different terms, and still Mr. Beast is appearing. I don't know the back end. I might be wrong by saying what I'm saying, you know what I mean? So, but when let me know in the comment section and enlighten me how these things work. If they banning him, how does that work, and why are they banning Mr. Beast out of all people? He's one of the nicest and people who are doing the greatest things in the world. I don't understand. And people were actually mad when that video came out. They were like, why is he being banned? Let's rather ban Yahoo. Let's rather ban Yahoo instead of Mr. Beast, because Mr. Beast is pouring to the people, and it kind of did, and it sparked a debate, or it sparked a conversation on the internet to say, well, Mr. Beast is just showing Uguti. And given that the project actually took about 8 months to complete, all 100 walls in Africa, schools that didn't have the necessary equipment or infrastructure, he helped those kids who were walking 10 kilometers to school. He helped them, and he bought bicycles. And he was like, this project didn't even cost a lot. You know what I mean? And I'm like, well, what are we talking about here? Why is there ban happening? And I'm like, well, it's bringing so much shame to the government to say, yo, government personnel, what are you doing with the money? This guy came, a YouTuber Nohan, came and did whatever he did, and he said this didn't even cost a lot. You know what I mean? And I'm like, okay, we see what William Ruto is doing of Kenya, the president of Kenya, and we've touched on the great stuff that he's doing in Kenya on a couple of episodes back. For those who don't know, just go back 2-3 episodes back. We did speak about William Ruto, which he is the president of Kenya. Yeah, so with the no visa thingy for African countries, so people from Africa can visit Kenya without having their visas, So, but also South Africa has the same rule, but for 90 days for those people in Kenya. After 90 days, you have to go back, refresh there, come back. There's a whole process behind it. It's not all the way, Yeah, we did speak about William Ruto, and people were saying, and I was based on the information that I got on the internet, on the research even that I was reading, as reading the minerals, the everything, how much it's making. On paper, Kenya looks good. I must say, it looks very, very good on paper. So then I'm like, oh well, Mr. Beast just did one of the greatest things, and he revealed that what we see on paper, it's not actually the reality for the people in Kenya. I don't know if they are not exposed to relevant infrastructure to talk on your platforms such as YouTube or TikTok, to be no, what you actually see doesn't actually benefit the people, but it benefits all the government officials, but it doesn't do anything for the people on the ground. I think by so doing, I got to see a different light of Kenya, and I was like, well, what's going on here? And I'm not saying that South Africa is perfect, by the way. Don't get that twisted. I'm not saying it's perfect, but the fact that we speak about our problems, we say South Africa, there's load shedding. You must know before you come. You must know there's a corruption. There's a whole lot of corruption that's going on. There's a huge spike in unemployment, and there's a huge rate of load shedding, and it's all because of corruption. We are at the forefront, saying that like if you want to, these are the things you need to know about it's not good. People like they might try to make it look good on the net or whatever for like your tourism purposes, to make it look good on paper, but at the end of the day, the voice of South African people is very louder than like all your media houses, if I may say so myself, because you may have people like Trevor who are pushing the 33 allegedly ad to try and like bring in with hopes to get that back with the tourism industry. By so doing, he is exposed to a plethora, or like a lot of the people, or a huge, or like he has international audience, if I may put it in simple terms. He has a huge audience in the world, by using him as a vessel to kind of like communicate what South Africa, what Africa is about. It's us winning and people knowing how Africa, and it's kind of like irrigating the narrative that Africa is a jungle and all that nonsense by using him in the forefront. It's just a benefit. We are just benefiting as a country from that, because people get to see what our country is all about from the perspective from the people from South Africa, and like getting the story of South Africans from Americans, and you're like, that's not completely how this thing goes, but yeah, like so there's that part even. So I really appreciate that the Department of Tourism, I don't know which department it was that was behind that, but yeah, I think that was a dope initiative. It was very strategic. I could tell from where I am, and like, how does these news even come about? Because I knew about the ad a month or two before that ad came out, and I never knew anything before that. And I'm just surprised that the ad even came out now, but we knew about it like a month ago. And I'm like, how does this happen? Who is inside and feeding the media all this information? Like, how does this work even? It's strange. Is it the government sites that are pushing all this, and the journalists are taking that? And like, how does the ecosystem in the media work, and how people consume information is just amazing. And I'm like, how do they take some and get, like that entire thing? I'm just amazed by it, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. On about it. And Kenya, the government officials, shout out to Mr. Beast for building all those 100 wells in Africa, man. Shout out to the people that were also working with him in collaboration to make sure that the project becomes a success. Shout out to him. And for those of you who didn't watch Podcast and Chill, I think Big G did mention Uguti. Mr. Beast actually has a South African girlfriend, and I've seen it before the podcast, obviously, because the friend of Mr. Beast and someone was on some podcast, American podcast, and he did say during COVID they were this side, the girlfriend. There was a whole story behind it. That's how I actually knew how Mr. Beast has a South African government, and that's how I actually knew about the girlfriend. So yeah. So on other news, man, pata. That's okay, my own cool cat, man. I want us to talk a bit about hip hop, like just give it 2 minutes, nyan. So, I think Cool Cat is Cool Cat is one of like the people. In the beginning, I felt like he had a lot to offer, like how a lot of the young people dress now, the 2Ks dress now. The influence comes from that generation, Cool Cat, and I feel like he doesn't own it enough to say like we the people who came with the fashion sense, the style that these people, the kids in Brown, are dressing. It's because of the people. I know there's people who might agree, but I'm like, we got that feel from Cool Cat, the style, how he rapped. He represented culture, like hip hop culture, like the culture in general. He represented it in every sense, and I still respect him, even though like I felt like the Pickle Pata freestyle was whack, but he's still one of like the trendsetters. Even Cass at some point was jacking moves, like AKA was saying one of the songs, he was like, take your style from Malum Cool Cat. They took your own style from Malum Cool Cat. I don't know, I think it's composure. Hold it now. I think he did say Gucci was jacking one of his styles from Okay Malone, Cool Cat. So I think Cool Cat, besides the freestyle, I think he's a dope cat, man. The music is it's coming. I'm still waiting for the album. We should get it in. I haven't. If it came out, please do let me know in the comment section, because I've been waiting for that album. And I was listening to Amalobola, the slow version of it. I was like, well, so where is Ushugele Tieni? Because we've been waiting on this guy to release Ushugele Tieni. We haven't received that album. It's surprising that we haven't released that album. I'm still waiting for that, to hear that. And at some point in his career, I did hear Guti he was leaving rapping. He was going back into DJing. So for people who don't know, like, Cool Cat used to be a DJ back in the day. Okay, Malum Cool Cat used to be a DJ back in the day. But then he was like saying, Guti, there's no money in hip hop now. You know, people are moving on to piano, and we are no longer getting booked or gigs in that sense. So I'm going back to DJing so I can do international tours and make that bread. And it made sense that, you know, Reason also like changed from being Reason to Sizwe Alakai and trying to get the piano back and being ghostwriter for DJ Maporisa Matumani, you know. So I get it, but I don't know how like, I don't know how much of that was true. But I was like, okay, I can see this working for the sake of bread, but not the culture, but bread. And, you know, I think to stay relevant at all times, to get bread, you always need to like reinvent yourself. I think one of the people that did that so well, carried that so well, is rest in peace, aka he did that so well, man. Skomota, I see Skomota is trending all over the dance, man. There's people who are killing it on TikTok. I saw that and I thought we should touch on that. The Dala Tukzin Iplani song, bro, like, I think I've listened to the original and I've listened to the Shabby Shit version. Is it Shabby Shit? I listened to the Shabby Shit version and I was like, oh, this is actually nice. I think we might actually need a remix of this Iplani song featuring Shabby Shit. And to add on that, I saw Guti Umsebenzi way to buy who's that guy? 929, Pasta 929 is coming out on the 1st of December. The album, Umsebenzi way to buy Pasta 929. It's coming out on the 1st of December. Please do let us know what you think of that. I think the cover art is very nice. It's representing the culture of piano. And, you know, I think it's doing well. It's doing well. Besides that, he's dating like young girls and stuff. And they do say Jafta is also like, Pasta is young, you know. But I don't know if he's really that young for 19-year-olds, man. It's crazy. But yeah, it is what it is. We are touching on Kune. People are saying Mini Dlamini specifically did a skit or bloopers of a TV something Tonto, then it was leaked. I don't know if it was leaked, but they were saying, hey, Kune is still playing you, and was surprised. Then a whole Twitter thing was going on, Kune must retire, and I'm like, yeah, I think now it's time that Kune must retire or find something in like the coaching structures. One more thing that we need to touch on, is the Migos. The debate has been going on that since Offset, I think Offset is on fire. He's also one of the people that's going crazy with the freestyle, the kid, and the album that he just released. I think he's on fire. You know, I think he's on roll. And I'm like, oh, I love to see it. And he did mention it to himself. He's like, oh, I've actually taken off, no pun intended, I've actually taken off after I decided to go solo. You know, I've done so much since I've got solo, and you know, I've done so much. And I think in that line he was saying he's glad that he did it. And someone was saying, you know, Offset is one of the hardest Migos amongst the Migos. He was like, yo, like he's one of, and I was like, no, he's not. Like Takeoff is like the ultimate. You know, he's like the ultimate. I think Takeoff, for people who listen to rap, who are into like rap, they could tell the Takeoff was like the hardest Migo, and he was like nice lyrically in every sense. But I also see Offset now is going on to that, and I'm really loving his pen and how he writes music nowadays. I'm really digging it, and I haven't got to a lot. I've seen snippets of freestyles. I'm still going to sit on that, and I'll let you know what I think about that. What you think about the show so far? Do let me know in the comment section. I'm your host, Lesego M, Daddy Waddy Pod, aka Shoot Your Shot, and maybe you might get a chance to call me Daddy like Cairo. I think for a lot of the people that have been waiting for the moment, the book of the day. So the book of the day, I haven't read the book myself because I'm still sitting with the book that I bought by the name of Three Little Truths. Still a long book, you know. I think I did mention it 4 or 5 episodes ago that I'm reading that book. I'm still reading it. I'm still not done. I want to also read, I think this will be the book for tomorrow, Crashing It by Gary Vee. It was released 2009. I think that's also a book that will be the book of tomorrow. But the book of the day for today is Power of Being Broke. How empty pockets, a tight budget, and a hunger for success can become your greatest competitive advantage. And the author of the book is Damian John. Do let me know what you think about that book, and don't forget to follow, like, and comment to get a notification for each and every time we release a new episode. I'm your host, Lesego M, Daddy Waddy Pot. Let's meet on another segment of Backroom Convos. Let's meet tomorrow. Cheers.